All right, now we're gonna change gears and talk about something that some people like baseball. My pastime is pro wrestling. It's crazy to say this, but I've been watching for almost 30 years because I started when I was really little. Like I was like a toddler, pretty much. My older brother and I would go to the video store. Yeah, back in the day, and we'd rent the old Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan era VHSs. By then, it was already like mid '90s. So then we started watching like the TV shows and everything. My dad, my mom, with their busy schedules, they made sure that we went to a few live events too, a couple of big ones too. And basically, uh, we most of us grew up with like the Attitude Era, and that was like when that was cool. And I think fond memories of hanging out with my brother watching those old Stone Cold late '90s, early 2000 moments. And then I kept watching, but it wasn't the same because obviously I was getting older. But I just kept watching. And actually, a couple years ago, I started going to live events. My girlfriend got me a Christmas gift. It was Raw 25, and she goes all out when we do events. We were like pretty much on the ramp aisle. I saw all my favorites. I saw like Stone Cold. I saw all those guys. And then I started going to the indie shows in the New York City area. That's when things changed. That was more of a do-it-yourself mentality, and be the same guys and girls and women at the same shows. I actually met some people through there, a lot of cool people, and I started an Instagram account just to show like classic moments and like funny memes and all that, and just started growing. It's been 2 years since that, and one of the guys I saw at one of the shows was the first time. The music hit, and it was a song from one of my favorite comedies, Wet Hot American Summer. And I was like, oh, I was like, who's this? He strolled out, denim jacket, sunglasses, very nonchalant. Everyone else knew him right away. And I was like, hands in his pocket. When he got to the apron, he basically like rolled and like all slow and everything, was very nonchalant. And then the announcer was like, from whatever, weighing whatever, here's Orange Cassidy. And at first I was like, oh, this is silly because his opponent was like, they were like squaring up, and he had hands in his pocket, and he just started kicking the guy in the knee, in the shins, and everyone was like, oh, like he just did a crazy move. I was like, oh, this is kind of silly, but then it kept going, and then like 5 minutes into the match, he like exploded, started doing like backflips, all these crazy moves, and I got into it, and then I started going all the time, and I met a lot of cool people, and recently, most of the people that I saw like front row in like tiny gyms and like churches, now they're on national TV on AEW, TNT. Me and Suge, I mentioned it to Suge, and I was like, you should check this out. This guy's pretty funny. And Suge, when you saw him first, what did you think?
Yeah, like I came across him on like Twitter or Instagram posts, and I wasn't too familiar with him, but I just saw his style and like his attitude, and it was just something like I hadn't seen in years. And I think the post really had nothing to do about wrestling. I mean, the caption might have been like, "Oh, this, I wish I could be this like this is me at work or something like that," right? So I think I sent it to Mike, and I was like, "Who is this dude? Like, he's my new favorite wrestler now." So then Mike tells me like, "Yeah, I actually met him. He's really big on like the indie scene. His name is Orange Cassidy." So I'm like, "Is he really like that? Like all the time? Does he just like wrestle with his hand in his pocket, like, and just like you know, too too cool for school? Like, is that his whole gimmick?" And Mike was like, "Yeah, like." He was like, even when I met him, like he didn't talk to me. He just like took the pictures like real like nonchalantly. So I was really impressed by him. And for those who are listening that might not be familiar with wrestling or might only be familiar with WWE, since WCW went out of business in 2001 because WWE bought it, it hasn't really been there hasn't really been a competitive um or a competitor for them that's actually on their level. You had TNA but I don't think TNA was. What I'm finding out now is it never really was meant to compete with WWE really. But now you have AEW, which was um actually founded by a few disgruntled former WWE employees who kind of wanted to get back to the zone where your gimmick is like your character and your persona, like where your gimmick and your storyline, the wrestlers have input. Whereas in WWE, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, the writers and Vince are the ones who create the storyline and create, tell you where your character is going and stuff like that. Whereas AEW, you know, guys are who they are and they're just packaged like that. And I don't watch either regularly, like weekly, like I used to back in the day. But from what I've seen with AEW, it's far more interesting on a lot different levels than WWE is today. It's a lot more entertaining in ring. The characters a lot more entertaining. So Orange Cassidy really captured my attention because, we talked about Undertaker a while back, where he basically owned his gimmick and brought it to different levels. And Orange Cassidy, he's really dedicated to his gimmick. So it's just something that's just been lacking in the wrestling world over the past 20 to 25 years or so.
Exactly. That's a great point. And I know, Joel, you used to watch it back in the day, right? When you were like younger as a kid.
Yeah, it's a ton of wrestling. I was WCW. I used to flip back and forth when it was the Monday Night Wars, like always back and forth. WWE or WWF back then, WCW, and like I like the fact that especially early WWF that like teams like the oddities, it was just weird, a whole bunch of weirdness, like awkwardness, and that's what I like more than just like obviously I like the Stone Cold characters, but it's always a lot more like wrestling is going to be a lot more fun if it's just a little weirdness to it or like awkwardness. That's why with Orange Cassidy, like his whole style is just like laid back and like awkward, glasses on, hands in pocket. He has jeans on, like dad jeans on. You know what I mean? So it looks like he's not even there to wrestle. He just looks like a fan that came out. They did. Oh, we need a couple bucks. That's what it looks like, and that's what I like. He's not really like that muscly. Oh, I'm gonna just like roaring wrestler. He's a laid back, calm wrestler, and even like the moves. I think Shaban sent me like his YouTube, like best clip a compilation of his moves, and the guy can get down sometimes too. Like he could flip. He has like some what's it called?
Hurricane Rana.
Agility. I'm pronouncing that right?
Agility.
Yeah, there we go. Agility. He has a lot of agility doing the Hurricane Rana, like Mike, you said. I've seen a couple highlights of him doing that, and it's really impressive. I might go into watching wrestling a lot more now, so AEW especially. Now that I got some time on my hand, it kind of brings that nostalgic feeling, like I said, like this awkward, weird wrestlers, which I like.
Hey, there you
Darnell.
go, AEW. Your new fan. I got your new fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Darnell.
Get a kickback. Get a
I
kickback.
agree, man. Yeah. Similar to you guys, I grew up pretty much being a big fan of wrestling too. WWF, as what it was named, as you guys know. I was more of a big fan of versus WCW. I grew up watching Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, Undertaker, the wrestlers like that. So I've been a fan for a long time, through the Attitude Era, all the way to the Ruthless Aggression Era. Also was a little bit of a fan of John Cena, Randy Orton, Edge, and cats like that. So I've been a fan for a very long time. I want to say consistently all the way into like 2012 2015. After that, I started, losing a little bit of interest, just a little bit, especially with the WWE, because the direction that they were going in. Personally, I felt like it was too PG. It was getting to a point which was too predictable. You could tell, they were lacking with segments and writing and, you know, direction, things like that. AEW pops up to the scene, like Siobhan and Mike were pretty much were saying before earlier. WWE for years really didn't have a true competitor against it since WCW, which they brought out in like 2001. So the AEW, I really like. I'm a fan of. I would prefer to watch that product versus watching WWE right now. Just because it's fresher. I feel like they get more creative freedom to the wrestlers, and I think they have overall better characters. And to Orange, I feel like he goes hand in hand with the release of Orange Cassidy. He's fresh. He brings something new to the table. He's innovative, creative. It's not typical or predictable. It's something new. It's something that the fans will love. So I'm a big fan of him just for all of those reasons and everything that he represents.
That's awesome. I'm glad I brought this up because everyone's saying, like when we were younger, it was cool. It was like, of course we were young, but it was mainstream. Everyone was talking about it. It was people would wear the T-shirts. You would see guys, wearing the Austin 316 out in the street. Now it's obviously a niche. It's a niche thing, but I think with social media, a lot of people are checking it out. But with that, how does that translate into money? So basically, I'm thinking how that's going to work out. And a lot of people are saying with Orange Cassidy is that, he's a joke, he's comedy wrestling. A lot of the old school guys are saying, that's not wrestling. But like Suge said, when I took a photo op, I'm not a guy, I don't like photo ops. I used to hate getting like things signed. I didn't like that. I just figured out, check it out. It'd be, be kind of funny. And like he was in character, and that's called kayfabe, and no one does that anymore. If you go on social media, it's like they have their real names, their like shoot names, and it kind of like breaks the illusion. I know we all know it's like it's performance. I knew that when I was like 4 or 5. I knew it wasn't, but he's not the only one who's like always in character, and I'm it's ironic that people from the old school like don't appreciate that. So that's basically like I brought him up because I feel like he's one of the guys who can attract the mainstream, like a Laps fan, like Suge. You guys, like Joel, you watched as a kid. Darnell, you got kind of tired of it a couple years ago, and I think in the future, it'll translate the ratings. But with COVID, they don't have an audience in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of like piecing things together, and it's kind of suffering. But the main event for the last couple of weeks involved Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. You guys know Chris Jericho, of course.
Oh yeah, one of the goats.
Y2J.
One of the goats, man. That's one of my personal favorites of all time. Shawn Michaels is number 1. Chris Jericho's definitely my top 5.
And Jericho might be like one of the only. Like you might want to put him in the consideration for like greatest of all time because he was like a top professional wrestler in 4 different decades because he was on top in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. He's like the guy also in AEW, and it ain't something like Hulk Hogan where he just goes to places and he's just like put into main event scene, based off of like reputation. Like he's actually a worker, and that's a word, a dictionary word for wrestlers, workers. And I think with Orange Cassidy and AEW and a different slant that they're doing wrestling in and being innovative, I don't know, Mike, do you think he's somebody that would be like the face of a company, or do you think um he essentially is just like, a gimmick to draw people in that, would otherwise not be interested in a classic wrestling match?
Yeah, so going back, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is someone that not everyone knows. I like the New Age Outlaws. I like the Badass Billy Gunn. You ask somebody on the street about him, they may not know him, most likely. But he wasn't the face of the company. He was, but people wore the DX shirt and everything, and it was a draw. Like the everyday guy would wear the suck. We were all like little kids doing the suck it thing, and it was a big deal. Like they had like Inside Edition would be like, "What's going on with the kids in America?" It was like a big deal. And I think that Orange Cassidy is just kind of like a little draw, and then you see like the bigger guys, the main event guys, which helps because WWE, you watch that. Well, I haven't watched it. I watched like the SmackDown premiere back in the fall, and I just couldn't get into it. It's like the same. There's no personality. You turn it on, you got like the same writers writing like everyone's speech. It's like a speech now, like a monologue, and it's not like natural. Like it or not, like there's so many different personalities in AEW. They're doing their own thing. Sometimes it's you watch and you don't like one thing, but then you watch somebody else. Like there's formerly the FTR, and everyone like say they're like old school, but then the next match you'll see Orange Cassidy, kind of doing what they call comedy wrestling, and I think basically you have Orange Cassidy be the draw. They have him on the posters, but they have like 30 people on the posters. Bring them in, then you see everything else, and they were doing really well before they locked everything down with the quarantine. They had huge crowds. They were about to do 16,000 in Newark, and I had tickets to it. It was like a week after they locked everything down. That would have been huge. That would have been like a pay-per-view level, and it was rescheduled to February next year. So, like every other form of entertainment, they're kind of playing it by ear. But let's see if this Orange Cassidy kind of dries up in a couple of weeks and people just like don't care anymore. And we'll see if it was all for naught. But I think it's going to help out and push it on. And he's like, meme worthy. That's the future. Instead of wearing T-shirts and like suck it, it's memes.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be everywhere on social media, and just the fact that he'd always be like, somebody like Joel or Darnell would be like, oh yeah, like I'm fit, I want to post something. Let me look up a GIF with like that wrestler that doesn't care, and he'll hit like, they'll hit one of us up, and we're like, oh yeah, Orange Cassidy. 'Cause, like I said, that's how I got. That's how I noticed him, because somebody posted him, and I sent it to Mike because I didn't know his name. It was like, yeah, it's this dude Orange Cassidy. Like, yeah, that's his whole persona. His gimmick is just like he really doesn't care. And then he performs in a ring. He does all of these agile things and these wicked moves and stuff like that. But just the fact that his gimmick is a thing that is drawing people in, it's something that's a lost art in wrestling today.
Right. I brought this up because a couple of weeks ago, I was just looking for like whatever, like whatever. I was actually probably texting Suge, and I was just doing like a whatever, and like the seventh one that popped up in like just a generic or whatever was him jumping through the ropes, and I was like, all right, that's weird, and it wasn't even like it wasn't even trending that day. It wasn't even on the air. It was just like a random day, and it was like top 7. I was like, all right, let's check it out, let's explore it. Why not? Because I'm a big wrestling fan, and he's gonna puke. That's based on Vince McMahon's famous line. That's my social media. I've been posting things about this show, trying to attract people, and I'm actually getting a great feedback from some people. DM me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna check out the show." But I think with this, let's see if Orange Cassidy can draw not just with AEW, maybe they can draw some people into our show and check it out, and then they'll stick around.
Yeah. Darnell, Joel, you got anything else you want to say about this before we go into our final thoughts?
Yeah, just
You go ahead first.
Joel, you go ahead.
yeah, this like I said, it's refreshing to see just a new type of talent. It's like, and like I stopped watching wrestling, I want to say 2009. That's when I really kind of like stopped watching like WWE altogether, and only because like again it got predictable, this, that, and the third. And even if it was predictable, which I already know it's a storyline, I already know it's scripted, but like at least the wrestlers could be different. You know what I mean? And that's what I like from Orange Cassidy. Like he'll be, even though I already know he might lose the fight or whatever have you, he lose the fight or that's like, just because that's how the storyline was, at least it'll be entertaining to watch him fight. It's real different. That's what I like about it.
Darnell?
I agree, man. And it's really hard to find wrestlers who, become a draw like that. It's very rare that you find a Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, or even a John Cena. Really, it's really hard to find those type of wrestlers. I've been on and off with like wrestling for the last like couple of years, like I was saying earlier. One thing that kept me like interested, especially around like 2011, because 2010, Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler. He retired after that year, so I needed something to keep me like consistently interested. During that time, they were pretty much putting Cena over, a lot, and I think everyone was, you know, exhausted from watching, Cena win all the time. So, CM Punk and the way that he had his run, from like that period of time until like 2013, 2014, that made me still want to watch the product for a little bit longer. It kind of energized the company, a little bit. So I see a similar situation happening with Orange, for sure. Bringing a breath of fresh air into wrestling, capturing people's attention. And I see him being a huge draw. I don't think it's going to be like a one and done type of scenario. I think he's got some really great potential to accomplish great things and definitely um, have more viewers tune in. And to not just wrestling, but like Mike was saying earlier, people who talk about him too, like platforms like we have here. So I look forward to seeing what can happen. I'll be interested to watch again.